What's up everyone, Mike Thornton here. On today's video, I'm going to share some secrets that we use with our buyers to help win a bidding war. We just had a home the other day where we had 27 offers and we were able to secure that home for our buyer. And these are some of the strategies that we use. So let's jump in so I can help you secure your dream home, because the chances are if it's your dream home, it's somebody else's dream home as well. Let's talk about some of the traditional terms. Obviously, price matters. So if you're not the highest price, you better make up the difference with some of these other terms that we're going to talk about. But if you're in a bidding war and you're competing against other individuals, other buyers, you're going to need to be at the top of the list regarding price. Now, financing, what I mean there is it matters if you're 3% down versus 5% down versus 25% down. Now, it doesn't mean everything, but if I'm representing a seller and there's an offer of 3% down competing with 25% down, the 25% down is much more attractive, mainly for the reason that in today's market, there's a high chance that we may see or receive an appraisal waiver or have a less stringent appraisal if there's 25% down in the property. Whether appraisers or banks say it or not, they are there to just manage their risk. And so if a buyer's putting down 25%, there's much less risk for the bank, and we tend to have less appraisal issues, in my opinion, in my experience. The other terms associated with that are earnest money, closing date. Does the seller want some flexibility there? Are they looking for the quickest close possible? Some of those more traditional terms do matter, and you definitely want to reach out to the other broker to understand what's best for the seller so that you can position these terms in the best possible way. Now, as is, this refers to going into an agreement, basically agreeing up front that you are not going to ask the seller for any credits or repairs after the inspection. So this doesn't mean that you're waiving the inspection. You will still do one in this case. However, you are giving the seller peace of mind that you're not going to be asking them for credits or repairs. In my experience, that's worth $3,000 or $4,000 based on what the typical ask is after an inspection. Now, this is something very interesting that we're seeing more and more of. This is providing some sort of appraisal gap coverage. Let's say a house is listed for $380 and we are going to offer $400,000 for it. Now, that might be the market price because there's 4 or 5 offers and you're in a bidding war. We probably expect that house to sell for $400,000. We are comfortable that that is the market value based on all the competition that we have with the other buyers. However, is the bank going to feel the same way? And are appraisers going to appraise that house at $400,000? Well, if you're a buyer and you can offer some sort of gap coverage to the seller, meaning you'll cover an appraisal gap, that is huge for a seller because it can help solidify their bottom line up front. Because in that example, if that home were to appraise, let's say for $390,000, you're going to have to renegotiate that deal. The bank is only going to lend against the value of $390,000, not $400,000 that you went into the contract at. So this is very, very attractive for sellers if a buyer can go in and say, hey, no matter what the home appraises for, we're going to cover the difference. Or more typical, they might put a cap on that. So they might say, we will give you $10,000 in gap coverage, meaning if that home appraises $10,000 light versus what you were under contract at, the deal will hold together. It'll be already determined that the buyer is going to bring those funds, additional funds, and you will not have to renegotiate the deal. This is something we're seeing more and more of. It's very smart because sellers, their number one worry in today's market is the home going to appraise? Now, escalation clauses. This is a way to actually submit your offer up front. And this is a way of basically saying your offer price will be in relation to the next highest offer price. Maybe instead of offering $400,000 in the example that we just played out, you could say, we're going to offer a floor of $380,000 and we're going to submit an escalation clause that says we will beat the next highest offer by $2,500 up to a cap of $400,000. If the next highest offer was $370,000, we would have paid $380,000 because that was the floor that we set. However, if the highest offer, excluding ourselves, was $390,000, this escalation clause then would say that we would have to beat that by $2,500, so we would actually be offering $392,500. This is really smart because it's a way to ensure you're the top offer If you leave it open-ended, you for sure do. But if you put a cap on it, it could save you a few $1,000s. If instead of going in at 400, there's a chance that you could get it for under that amount, even though your cap is 400. The next one is not super common in our market. I don't love this, but it's something that some people will do to win a house, and that is to waive the inspection altogether. So that is basically where you're not going to even go in with an inspector at all, and you're going to basically agree to contract terms and almost immediately close out attorney review period, where you're not going to go through and have the inspection, where of course there's still risk there for the seller if you go do the inspection and decide you don't want the home. So this would be a very aggressive thing to do as a buyer. This is something I wouldn't necessarily recommend. However, some experienced investors, let's say, or people that have done this a lot may decide they're going to waive inspection. Or if it's a home that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, that's fairly new and good shape, maybe somebody would waive inspection in that example. Another lever would be that you could offer non-refundable earnest money. So every state is different. Here in Illinois, where we practice, it's quite difficult actually for a buyer to lose their earnest money. If there's a poor inspection, you can almost certainly get out of that deal. There's also finance contingencies, so on and so forth. But if you were a buyer and if you offer to the seller that if you didn't get to the closing table for whatever reason, that your earnest money would be non-refundable, that would take a ton of risk off the seller's plate. And it wouldn't matter why that deal didn't get to the closing table. If it didn't, that seller would keep the earnest money. That is something, again, not super common in our market, but I know other markets this is common. And so it would be an aggressive offer and something that sellers would really like. Now, lastly, we're getting into some of the miscellaneous terms that you could offer, really showing your flexibility to the seller. Something that we're doing quite a bit is offering the seller flexibility to rent back their house after we close on it. Many sellers are in a situation where they know they can't be competitive if they want to go buy their next house with a home sale contingency on their offer, meaning that they have to sell their house in order to buy the next one. So what's best for that seller potentially is that they sell the house that they live in now, they clear their funds, they get all their money in hand, and then they rent back their own house for 2, 3, 4 months, allowing them to write a non-contingent offer on their next house. So you, as the buyer of their home, would afford them a ton of flexibility, and you would allow them to be more competitive in their purchase to offer them a rent back. We've also had buyers offer a rent back at a very low cost to the seller, which is even better. However, just providing them flexibility, whether it's a long close, a quick close, or a potential rent back, is just a way to sweeten the offer, something that you can do other than just offering the highest price. So hope this gives you some ideas and some insider secrets on how you can win in a bidding war. Because again, if it's your dream home, it's probably somebody else's dream home as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll talk to you soon.